The fenders on our 72 Nova are in seriously rough condition. These things have been sitting for almost half a century, but at the same time, these are the original fenders to the car, and it would just be so cool to save them to preserve history. That said, I've never done this before, so I don't even know if I could save these things, but we're gonna give it a shot and see what happens. And based on what just happened, it's completely changed the direction of this project. My name is Trooper Max, and I'm restoring a car that's been off the road since 1977. But I've never done this before. I've taken the time to do my research, and I'm building the car of my dreams, hoping to inspire others to do the same. Oh yes, the inner and outer fenders on our Nova. This is what nightmares are made of. So we got some real rough looking inner fenders. These things are brutal. On the inside, they're just covered in this goop, and I've had to deal with it before in the back, and it was just hours of sanding. It's gonna be a real pain in the butt. I can try two different techniques on that. Now the front fenders, they aren't much better. They're just a combination of rust, body filler, and really bad paint work. So these are gonna be a real challenge. At this point, I'm really not sure if these could be saved. They are just so rough in some areas. That said, I did spend some time fixing one of these. So this guy over here, I actually took the time to patch it. So I put this new patch on here. So we're gonna be doing some body work. Now, unfortunately, because I had never done a patch before, I did an absolutely horrible job, and it's just dented and really not straight at all. I used way too much heat. So we're gonna see if we fix it, but doing the actual patch itself was a really good idea. Just taking the time to cut out the old metal, put in a new sheet, just gives you a chance to save these things, but I don't even know if it's gonna be worth it. But to really figure out the condition of these and see if they're really savable, we gotta get the mask out and we gotta bust some rust. All right, that manual sanding took forever. Today we have a little helper. We have Bobby's. Is Bobby's ready to work on science?
You need safety glasses.
That's right, safety first.
Safety glasses.
Mama, you want to work on the Nova?
I love you, have fun.
The idea is to use this oven cleaner on this, to spray it on, and we're gonna cover it with plastic. Let's do it. Yeah, like this.
I don't know.
Are you having trouble?
Yes. I don't know how this.
Okay, you know what? We'll do it together. How about that? Okay, let's cover the whole thing. Okay, Dada's coming in now. Let's go have some fun. All right, following day, let's take a look at this. Well, it cleaned it well. Doesn't seem to have worked as well as I was hoping for. I think I'm just gonna take all the plastic off, clean it, and see what it looks like when we remove everything. Well, it didn't work, but it didn't fail. I think I'm gonna try another round of this. I don't wanna give up on it just yet. Interesting. Looks a lot more promising. Look at that. That's pretty gross, but in a good way. Something's happening here. Look at that. Oven cleaner got us down to the paint. Oh, this is definitely good. Holy cow, that really did a lot. Not even any paint left here. All we got is this goop left and a little bit of paint on this side. Doesn't look like much until you compare it with this. Round 2. All right, let's see if anything happened. Oh, damn, I'm gonna have to sand this guy manually. Full day of sanding, and I'm not even close to being finished yet. There's a lot of work. If you're wondering why I look like I'm walking like Razor Ramon, I'm not trying to be like the bad guy. I don't know what the hell I did. I literally have the worst back injury ever. I think the crappiest part about working by yourself is there are no days off and there's no help. I took more drugs than Eric clapped, and hopefully that helps, but I was really hoping this spray stuff would help remove this so I could have less work, but I don't know. I think had there not been 2 layers of paint, this would have worked much better, but there's so much paint on this thing. Okay, so the easy off is working. It's actually removing some of the body filler too, and that's the original paint underneath. You know what, the hell with it. I was gonna sand this by hand today. I don't know if I could do that, so I'm just gonna spray it with easy off. Sprayed easy off in here last night just for the hell of it. Look at that. It's not bad. I've also periodically been using the easy off on the inner fenders, and it's helped a little bit, but honestly it's just taking way too long. It is nice that the heat gun removed all the inner goop. That probably worked the best, better than everything, so I'm really happy I don't have to sand that. That's gonna save us a lot of time. But I think right now we just have to manually sand everything. We're just gonna leave that one piece to keep soaking. Otherwise, I'm just gonna take the best tools I got, put my head down, and get this thing done. In the words of Les Stroud, Survivor Man, this is gonna be a long day. Oh, this is turning out to be quite the challenge. After 2 full days on that thing, 7 straight hours just now. I probably have an hour left, but I'm gonna stop. I'm just beat. There's just nothing left. This is turning out to be a lot harder than I thought it would be. Honestly, I thought maybe 1 day for 1 fender and just keep going, but man, it takes a long time. You know, at this point, I'm just praying that that stove cleaner actually does something, because I was just really hoping it to do something, but after doing that thing, man, this is a lot of work. This project's gonna take way longer than I thought. Now, doing all this, one thing I'm finding is how quickly we're going through the abrasives. I've already gone through 3 drums. I don't even know how many wire wheels. We're going through them real quick. It's adding up pretty quick, so it's becoming really expensive. So just to save one of these things, it's a lot of money, a lot of time and effort. So I could see why people just replace them and get new ones. All right, it's the following day, time to check this out. I actually ended up spraying all 3 of these because right now I need all the help I can get. So I need to know if this works or not. All right, let's do it. We've got sun happening, look at that. Whoa. Well, that's the most I've seen yet. I think we finally penetrated the pay layer here, folks. Okay, well, I'm just gonna spend my time washing this down, clean it, and try to remove as much as I can from all 3 of these pieces and see what they look like. See if they're gonna help me at all or not. Okay, it may not look like much, but trust me, a lot of paint came off. In the 15 or 20 minutes it took me to clean this, the vast majority of the paint came off this thing. There's still lots on here, but honestly, the amount of sanding it would take to remove all that, I probably just saved myself hours. And these guys are pretty much all bare. They just have a little bit of paint in some areas. So, you know what? At least I'm a little further ahead. This is hours we're talking about here. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna get my gear on. I'm gonna use all my sanding techniques, get all the sanding finished, inner fenders, outer fenders, work on it, and get this job ready to go to the next stage. So after 5 long days, we finally concluded stripping these inner and outer fenders. And overall, I gotta tell you, there's some good news and there's some bad news. Good news is these things are overall in pretty good condition. The inner fenders were actually in excellent shape. Once we got rid of all the goop, I was surprised just how good shape they were. There was a little bit of Swiss cheese in some areas, and there are some places we have to fix that were damaged when we were taking the bolts off, but other than that, pretty good shape. I'm not mad about that at all. Where the problem comes in is the actual fenders themselves. Unfortunately, we discovered another area just above where I had repaired. There was a patch done. I didn't see it before. On top of that, where the trim was connected, there's still a lot of holes. So there's a bunch of holes we have to fill, but that's not the end of the world. And then the last problem was the fact that there was actually holes in the front here. So this fender, the one I didn't work on, there's some holes there. And on top of that, there's actually some holes on the top of the fender in a kind of difficult area to work as well. So it doesn't seem very bad, but for a guy like myself that's never done this before, for something you're going to be seeing outside the car that's finished, it's going to be difficult to make this look good. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but we'll get it done. So on the final day when I was stripping this, something happened. And based on what just happened, it's completely changed the direction of this project. Now, I'm not going to go into the details right now because really I just want to get the work done. But once the work is done, then we'll talk about what's changed. But there will be some big changes. But for now, what I got to do is I got to fix these things. First thing I'm going to do is start with the easy stuff. I think I'm going to take the inner fenders and I'm just going to start welding. I'm going to fill the holes where the wiring was because I don't know where the wires are going to be. I'd rather just delete everything, have a clean slate, get it all fixed and go from there. And at that point, we can move on to the fenders and just start fixing those. We got a lot of work to do. We better get started. Alrighty, inner fenders have been repaired. They're not perfect, actually they're quite far from perfect, but they're good for now. Basically all I did is just fill the holes. I used low heat and I just kept filling the hole until it was gone. I didn't care about warpage or anything like that or cooling it down because these are just inner fenders. I could hide any sort of imperfections with the filler. There's a lot of imperfections as it is, so there's still gonna be some work to do on them. For now, the idea was just to get rid of the hole. So they're filled, they're gone. We ground them down with the flap disc. So these things are ready to go now, ready for the next stage. Now we gotta go for the outer fenders, and that's quite a different process. All right, so with the outer fenders, we're gonna start with the easier stuff. And for me, easier means these holes. So these holes are probably going to be the simplest thing to fix, so that's what we'll focus on first. Now I can't just take the welder, hit it, and fill it up because the problem is you're going to get warpage and it's really going to distort this. So I can't do that. Second thing is somebody had already filled these in the past. They put bolts on one side, nuts on the other, and then they cranked them together and then just cut them off. And that might seem okay. If you look at some of these, they actually look okay. But the problem is over time, rust begins there, and as you can see, it's the reason you got this penetration here. You could actually see the rust on the outside here. So that's not the way to go. I can't take any chances of rust getting in there. So what I got to do is I got to actually drill all these out. I got to get rid of all these things and start from scratch because I don't want to have any chance of rust getting in there. So once that's done, then we can move on to the next stage. Just putting on some weld through primer. This is going to enable us to actually take another piece of metal and laminate on top. So we're going to cut little squares, put some weld through primer on them, and we're just going to tack them on, and that's going to give us a surface to weld on from the other side. Now I know a lot of pros are looking at this and be like, oh my god, that is not the right way to do it, because it's not. But the thing is, the pros have the experience and they have the tools. I have neither the experience nor the tools, so we're going to do it a different way. I do not care what it looks like on this side. The idea is just to put the metal on so that we have a surface from the other side. It'll still look good from the other side. For us, that's good enough for me. So I'm just going to make those squares. We're going to start welding them on. That's it. There we go. Little tack welds are done. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but don't worry. Have faith. I have an idea for this later on. This is just temporary right now. We just need some backers. So we're going to flip this bad boy over. We start welding. Okay, so now we're going to take our welder. We're going to go and give each one a shot, 2 to 3 hits, something like that, and move on to the next one. When we feel to get too warm, we're going to grab our compressed air, hit it with the compressed air because that will stop it from warping, and we'll just see how it looks. Move on. And there we go with some bodywork you won't even be able to tell. We'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, let's move on to this. Now, I'm gonna cut it further up, but what I wanna do is I'm actually going to disconnect these. I'm just curious what it looks like under there. So I'm actually gonna cut out the spot welds and see what it looks like. The last thing at this point I thought I'd be using is a spot weld cutter this far in the game, but here we are, so we're gonna do it. First pre-drill. All right, she's ready to go. We're just about ready to peel this back. I want to do this because I know there's some people watching going, Max, what the hell are you doing? There's no rust on the top, there's no holes, why don't you just leave it? It's because of this. This is why we do what we do. Now this is quite the interesting repair. It actually wasn't that bad. I'm surprised they did such a huge patch considering the hole was just here. Just a little thing like this, but what we think we'll do is we'll cut this whole piece out, get a nice square, and we'll put a new one in. Oh, would you look at that? Maybe I should have got a new fender. Maybe, just maybe. All right, so this kind of sucks because it makes me realize something. Whatever's happening here is also happening under here because there's a cross member under here. Anytime you got laminated pieces of metal, that's what happens. Moisture gets in and this crap builds up. Same thing's gonna happen on the other fenders. So the thing that sucks about saving these is these will rust one day. One day when this is done, rust holes will start here from the other side and it's gonna bubble through. It's not if, it's when. So despite doing all this crazy work saving this, it's still gonna happen, which sucks. But the way I figure is, if I'm doing it, I'm gonna save them. If one day I gotta replace a whole fender, then so be it, or whatever. But you know what, honestly, I'm still gonna save them. It just kind of sucks knowing that that kind of nastiness lies on the car. It's been the curse of this project since the very beginning. So that's why people use new metal, because you just don't have that problem. But you know what? I guess we like paint. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm just going to get this restored, get it back to the shape it's supposed to be in, and then move on to the next stage. Following day, just splashing on some lacquer thinner here before we get to the next stage of this. All right, so I've treated this, but obviously I can't really treat the inside there unless I opened it. But there is one thing I could do. I'm gonna just take some internal frame coating. I've been using this stuff since the very beginning. This is pretty much the only thing I can do, so I'm just gonna take it, spray it inside with a coat hanger, because I could really get a lot of access. You can see it pouring out up there, so that's a good sign. That is about all I can do, folks. A little bit of the weld through everywhere else. Let that dry and then weld it closed. Other fender. Check this out. Look how nicely the OSPO converted this into a paintable surface. Awesome. Paint away. Now, since beginning this project, the biggest problem I've had in the past was welding, and a patch like this would have intimidated me. However, after spending literally hundreds of hours on this project, there's a couple things I figured out that really will help make this go smoothly. In the past, I would trace out my piece of metal and drop it in, and then use butt welding clips, which you just clip in order to get a flush surface. But the problem is with these things, they actually leave quite a big gap between that. And because I'm using flux core and I'm using thin sheet metal, it's really difficult to weld with that kind of gap. So I figured the most important thing is to have perfect fitment, like this. Now it's so tight that I couldn't even get a butt welding clip in here if I wanted to. Now the way I got that is pretty simple. I usually just take my piece of metal and just trace it out like any other cut. The difference here is I put it all the way to the edge. The difference comes in when it's time to grind. Rather than grinding on the line itself, I always grind just outside the line. Doing it like this gives me the perfect amount of space, and that way when you're putting it in, you're not having this massive gap. So I drop it in and the fitment's almost perfect every time doing that kind of thing. Now the second thing about it all is to make sure it's all clean. So prior to even putting this in here, I made sure to take my wire brush, clean it off really nice, and then I just took some wax and grease remover and cleaned it off as well, get rid of all the contaminants. So now we have clean surfaces, we have a nice patch, and the last thing I like to do, just to make sure it sits properly, is actually use magnets. It's probably not the right way to do things, however it works really well for me, so that's what I'm doing. Once we got on flush, we could take our welder and start tacking it on the lowest power and the lowest wire speed, just tacking on in a couple different areas, making sure to have space between them so we don't heat this thing up too much, and of course using the air to cool it down when it does get too hot, just to avoid warpage. All right, she's all tacked on, it looks pretty good, it's nice and flat. So there's one more thing that's bothering me about this job, and it's this thing right here. Now there's nothing wrong with this area here, it's completely okay, there's no rust, there's no holes. But I know what happened on the other side. The other side looked like this. So I'm kind of in a dilemma here. Maybe you could help me out, let me know what you would do. So right below in the comments, would you cut it open or would you leave it be? That's a good question. I'm gonna take a little break and figure it out. So which choice did Max pick? If you know the answer, you've probably been spending too much time with me. Of course I picked choice number 2. You know, I'd rather deal with this now than 5 years from now start seeing a little bubble appearing and be angry that I got rust coming through. Even though I haven't looked underneath, I know what's going on in there just based on how these things are assembled. And this project's not about being a glutton for punishment or giving myself extra work. It's about overcoming your fears. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. So let's take a look what's behind door number 2. Did Max waste his time? Maybe, but maybe not. I'm actually kind of pleased about this because it's not that bad up there at all. Honestly, if all I have to do is fix it here and the rest is looking like that underneath, that's great. That means this thing's not going to bubble up and ruin my work. That's great. So I'm just going to spend the next little while cleaning everything up, getting it in the shape that I wanted to, doing any sort of prevention that I need to do, and move on. All right, all our welds are done. We ended up doing more patches than I expected. I actually ended up doing this bottom corner too. I saw a little rust there, opened it up and same deal. And I'm actually glad I did this entire patch because there actually is a hole here. You can actually see the rust really made a hole and just built up and went through. So it's a good thing we did all this stuff now. Now it's time to take the grinder with the flap disc and go all around, cut down all the welds, do any sort of other welding I have to do on both fenders and just get them patched up and ready for the next stage. All right, so the welds are all ground down. I'm now completely filthy, but these things are ready to go. And let me tell you, they're not perfect. Now I understand it's going to take a lot of body work to fix these because there was a lot more patches than I expected. There's a lot of rough areas and it's going to take many, many hours to make this look good. But the plan was to save these original fenders and use them again, so now I'm committed, we're going to have to do it. Now this one up here came out pretty good. This is the second one that we did. The one on the ground where I did the welding almost 2 years ago is pretty rough. I'm not sure we're going to be able to use that part, and it's very possible that when it comes time to put all this together, I'm going to have to cut it out and put in a new piece. But you know what? I'm not doing that. I'm going to see once we get to that stage. Once the car is assembled, we'll have to see. Now I fully expect to have to cut the car in different parts here and make everything fit, even when it's sprayed with epoxy. The whole point of this is to get it sealed, so that's what we're going to be doing soon. But before we do the epoxy, what I want to do is get rid of any rust that is remaining on the inside and use our OSPHO, which will convert any remaining rust into a paintable surface. At the same time, it's going to allow us to get rid of any sort of rust that we weren't able to get. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to take my OSPHO and I'm just going to go around the whole inside of these fenders here. I'm not doing the outside, just the insides for now. I'm going to be scrubbing, removing all the rust, going over and over, making sure they're sealed, and just until I'm happy with it. And then we're going to leave it for 2 days and come back to it. Yet another day has gone by, but this thing's looking like $1 million. And at this point, this project feels like the never-ending project, but I'm really pleased with the progress. I'm just taking the time to take some lacquer thinner, and I'm just going all over where the OSPHO was put on. That's pretty much the final stage before the painting and epoxy stage, but there is one more thing we're gonna do. So rather than just going and spraying it with epoxy, there's still some areas where I wasn't able to treat just because of the lamination. So we are going to use one more product once I'm done with this. I'm going to show you one more thing we could do. All right, so our last line of defense, these guys right here. So this is the internal frame coating that we've been using. So I'm going to put that in any sort of area that I can get in and just shoot it inside. And this is where two pieces of metal are laminated together with difficult access. I'm just going to shoot that in there. The second thing is I'm going to use this stuff, the rust encapsulator. So once again, it's the same principle. It's just wherever there's a gap, rather than shooting epoxy primer in there first, which will rust through, by the way, I'm going to do this because this is supposed to convert the rust. So anything the OSFO wasn't able to treat, I figure I'm just going to get in all the nooks and crannies, because after this is done, you can actually paint epoxy primer right over it. So it should be okay. So that's kind of the new trick. We'll see how it works. I'm not really sure, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to go around the whole car, spray with this product, and see how it looks like. Fenders are all sealed and ready to go, and they look pretty good if I don't say so myself. Now it's really nice knowing that all the rust has been encapsulated in the little nooks and crannies. So when we do spray this with epoxy primer, it should be sealed and nice to go. And that's the next stage. And honestly, a job like this is 98% prep and 2% actual epoxy primer. But prior to doing that, there's something I want to talk about. So a while back, a few weeks ago, we had mentioned that something happened during this job and it changed the whole direction of this project. So since the very beginning, we've been hand sanding this on jack stands. No sandblaster, no rotisserie, no fancy tools. The idea of this was always to do it like a regular Joe. I'm just a regular guy doing this for the first time, and I wanted to help out as many people as possible so they could make their own dreams come true as well. Not everybody can get a sandblaster or have the means to do it, so that was kind of the first step. And what happened last week when I was working on this and I realized I could save the fenders, it kind of hit me. If we save all the original parts on this car, it's just going to make it much more special. We already saved the bumpers. I didn't expect to save those things. I was going to leave them back in New Brunswick, but I ended up bringing them, and they look great. And now at this point, we're saving the fenders. We've saved the trunk lid. Now we're just saving everything. So basically, my thought is, if it has all original parts, all original fenders, original inner, outer fenders, bumpers, all the bracketry, doors, trunk lid, hood, this is stuff that I wasn't gonna save. I was gonna change the hood originally. I was gonna put a cowl induction hood. I'm now gonna make a custom hood out of that old hood. We saved the trunk lid, so we're keeping that. This is gonna make the project much more special because this car got preserved to the point where it wasn't all rotted away and the owner had put oil on it, that this actually has some history to it. But I'm gonna take this one step further. Not only are we gonna save all the original metal, but I wanna save all the original trim. That means any sort of trims, aluminum, chrome, we're talking bezels, we're talking the original grille. I am not allowed to use any new parts unless I'm missing the part. So we have to restore this stuff, and a lot of this stuff is super rough. I just think this will make this car much more special. It'll be kind of unique. It's gonna be different than anything else, and it's gonna have one hell of a story. And I know a lot of people are asking, Max, what the hell are you doing? Why are you giving yourself such an insane challenge when you've already had so many crazy challenges? I think life is about doing something unique, You gotta make something your own, make it personal, make it mean something. I was at my parents' house and my grandmother's really sick lately, and I was in a room and I saw this. This, my friends, is a picture of a racetrack, but it's not just any racetrack. This is a racetrack my dad built back in 1996. I used to race go-karts, and he was so committed to this dream that he ended up actually taking the time and building his own racetrack. With no experience at all, using just decrepit machines, him and a bunch of his friends built this thing by hand. Such an insane goal, it doesn't even seem real. If the pictures didn't exist and the videos, I don't think I would have believed it happened, but it did. And I think I got that fighting spirit from my dad, and this project is kind of like my dad's track back in the day. It's this insane project. Because after he had completed the track, it actually ended up being very popular. There was lots of races there, created a lot of memories for a lot of people, and it was very special. And to this day, it's the most impressive thing he's ever done in my life. And when I was a kid, he was my hero because of that. So now we got this Nova here. We're doing this crazy project. We're saving as much as we can. We're doing it probably the most unconventional, difficult way possible. When it's done though, it's gonna mean something. And at the same time, we've been working on this car for a while now, almost 2 years. And to this point, it hasn't had a name. There's been no name for it other than the Nova project. The thing I've always been kind of infatuated with is nostalgia. It's the one word that really describes who I am and what I'm passionate about, doing stories on other people's cars and building this stuff. So from now on, this is going to be known as the Nostalgia Nova. It finally has a name. I think it makes a lot of sense. We're going to have it, a 70s street machine throwback. with a modern flair. We're gonna make it look like nothing else out there. It's gonna have one hell of a story. We're gonna get this thing done, and it's gonna be one hell of a journey. I hope you guys stick around. So now let's start going back to work, restoring more stuff.